Okay, busy day today. Thanks for your patience. It's time to do the last assignment of the day, which is 2.8, Path to the Presidency. We're going to learn when you declare yourself running for president, like how does it work? Where do you go from there? So make the assignment in your notebook, look at the table of contents, and write down the assignment. And it's on lined paper, so here we go. We're going to begin by looking at a graphic organizer on the next slide, and I kind of want you to make a flow chart on your paper to show like how do you become president. Everything that I circle with the ink, I want you to write. So here it is. This is how you become the president. It's kind of like this number 2 or this letter S. I want you to make a flow chart on your paper. You don't have to draw pictures. It doesn't have to be beautiful, but write some words and put arrows. So you need to be a citizen born in America. You need to be 35 years old. You need to have lived here for the last 14 years. Write all that stuff down. You're probably going to need to pause the video because, yeah, I'm going to move faster than you can move. So substitute teacher, don't be afraid to pause the video, please. Ask the kids. Don't go too fast, okay? Then draw a little arrow. What happens next? Well, you declare that you're running for president, and you have to run in these primaries and caucuses. So that's what you're going to write next. Next up comes the primaries and caucuses. This is the playoff system before you can run in the general election. Okay, I'm going to talk about all these steps today, and that's what today's notes are. Then you go to the national convention, where the party, the political party, has this big kind of celebration where you accept the nomination for the president, and you will represent the Republican Party or the Democratic Party in the general election. So draw an arrow down here. Next up is the general election. This is Trump versus Hillary, and it all comes down to election night, and then people cast their vote and determine how their states are going to vote, and it goes to the Electoral College where they cast their ballots, and you need to reach 270 electoral votes, and then you become the President of the United States in January. Okay, so everything that I circled, I want you to write down. So probably now is a good time to pause the video. Okay, cool. Okay, if you look back to right before Trump was announced that he was running for president, we kind of knew that he was running because of the way that he was behaving, and we really knew with Hillary. I think we've known she was running for president for like 5 years, but they wait a little while to announce it, like, you know, several years before they finally admit it. And this time period before they're running is called the invisible primary, the idea that like we know you're running, but they pretend like they're not running, and they visit all these important states like New Hampshire and Iowa, even though it's like, come on, you're totally running. Okay, don't laugh, okay? There are 2 different types of ways that states can vote. One is in the primaries, and one is in these things called caucuses. Caucuses? Everybody say caucuses. Okay. Everybody say caucuses one more time. Get it out of your system. Okay, haha, laugh. Okay, sounds kind of funny. So there are primaries and there are caucuses. I think a primary is what you picture. That's what California has, where you go in a booth and you vote between Hillary and Bernie. You vote between the Democrats, or you vote between the Republicans. A caucus is kind of weird. What a caucus is, and don't focus so much on writing down these words. Why don't you focus more on writing down what I say? What a caucus does is, imagine like the Roosevelt Gym. People from the city of Eastville gather in the Roosevelt Gym, and then there are people in the corner of the room, like someone's got a Bernie Sanders sign, and someone has a Hillary Clinton sign, and they argue like Hillary should be the nominee, or Bernie should be the nominee. And people physically move around the room to show who they support. This takes like a couple hours. And then at the end, they count up how many people are everywhere, and that's the winner of like the city of Eastvale, and they do this in cities all across the state. So I don't know, there's only like 10 or 15 states that do it this way. This is called a caucus. The very first state to hold a caucus is Iowa. So, you know, like this stuff doesn't all happen on the same day. It's spread out. I want you to write down the day that Iowa holds a caucus. Are you ready? Iowa holds a caucus on February 1st, and it's like kind of the very first thing that happens in the election. And that also means that these candidates, Hillary and Bernie and Trump, they spend a crazy amount of time in these places that are kind of like they don't really matter that much, like Iowa. So they spend a lot of time for weeks before the caucus trying to earn the vote of the people of Iowa. And the idea is you want to win those first states because it gives you like some good momentum. Just like a football team wants to win the very first game of the season because it builds good momentum for the rest of the year. I don't want you to watch this YouTube video at the bottom. I'm going to give you some better ones to watch here in a minute. So this is just a map showing if the state is blue, it has a closed primary. If the state is green, it has an open primary. And if the state is this kind of red salmon color, that means that it has a caucus where they move around the high school gym and all that stuff. So a caucus feels a little outdated, and a lot of states have moved to the primary system. But some of these states are old school, and they've kept the caucus around. So much more familiar is this thing called a primary. So most states do something called a primary, which is what California does. So we go into the ballot box, probably the same place we're going to vote in November, but we do it in June. And June, by the way, kind of sucks because by that time we already know like who's going to win the election. But in California we do it June 1st. Why don't you write down California holds a primary on June 1st? California holds a primary on June 1st. And we vote between Hillary and Bernie, or if you're a Republican, you vote between Trump and Ted Cruz and John Kasich, and the winner gets all the points from California. Okay? You should know that the very first state to hold a primary is New Hampshire. Actually, I'm going to talk about it on the next slide, so here we go. So the very first state to hold a primary is New Hampshire, and I think that they go on February 6th or something like that. So Iowa is first with the caucus, and then New Hampshire is first with the primary. They're the first two states really to get involved in the elections. And again, you spend a lot of time and money trying to win New Hampshire's because you want to have momentum. A lot of states are not happy that they vote super late in the election. Like California, our power is really reduced because we vote in June. So we actually just passed a bill in California to move our date up to March 1st, which would make us much more important, and like people would actually have to visit us, like Trump and Clinton would actually have to come here more, whereas right now they can pretty much ignore us because we vote so late that by then the election is basically over. Another word you have to know is Super Tuesday. Something like 15 states all gather together and they vote on the same day in March, and we call it Super Tuesday because they want to like combine their powers together to make them matter more. All right, every state wants to matter more than other states, so they try different strategies to try to make that happen. Okay, I want you to watch this video, so please click the link. I think it's the best possible explanation you can get for how a caucus or a primary works, and as you learn stuff, maybe add it to your notes. So yeah, sit back and watch how do primaries and caucuses work. Okay, the dude touched upon it in that YouTube video right now, but there's this thing in the Democratic Party called superdelegates. This is kind of confusing. So like the states are all worth a certain amount of points, but the Democratic Party lets these like certain party leaders be worth a point each, like Barack Obama and Bill Clinton and the mayor of Los Angeles and the governor of California, like people in the Democratic Party that are important. They're all worth 1 point, and they travel to the national convention. Look down here. They travel to the national convention and they go cast their points and they pick. This was controversial because when Hillary Clinton ran against Bernie, like almost none of them picked Bernie because Hillary Clinton had all the connections and friendships and she got all those points, and it felt a little bit anti-Bernie, like he had no way to win because all these people were against him. That's called a super delegate. If this stuff's super confusing, I'm going to reteach it a little bit when I get back because there's some stuff I would like to draw on the board to make it more clear. Remind me when I get back if you're a little confused about some of the stuff I'm saying, and I'll do some reteaching. Okay, so the summer arrives. It's like the end of June, beginning of July, and the parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, they have two separate conventions in different states like Ohio and Florida, and they have these big parties with balloons and banners and flags, and the people from the states gather together and they have a sign that says California, and they say California cast their vote for Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump, and this is where the people officially accept the nomination for the president. This is called the National Convention. At this convention, they also do this thing they call developing a party platform, where they literally lay out the way that the party feels about all these different issues, like gay marriage and guns. Like, they write it down in like, here's how we feel about gay marriage. We're still against it or something. Also, at this convention, the presidential nominee selects his vice presidential nominee. And remember that when they pick someone, they're thinking about balancing the ticket. You might have remembered from a previous lecture what that means is they're trying to pick somebody who compensates for their weaknesses. So Trump is kind of like not very religious, and he's kind of unpredictable, and his vice president is someone who's the opposite. He's very religious, and he's very predictable. Or how about Barack Obama, a young, not super experienced black man, picked Joe Biden, an old, experienced white man. Okay, so they try to balance the ticket. And then a big thing at these conventions is just that they want to bring the party together and get everybody in this like kumbaya happy moment. I think Trump was able to do that. All the Republicans kind of backed him up, even though people wondered if they would. At the Democrat convention, it was kind of more a little bit weird because Bernie really wanted the nomination, and it was kind of like he kind of begrudgingly said, okay, Hillary, I guess you're the nominee. I guess I'll drop out. And the party was more divided, and you could say that was part of the reason why Hillary didn't have success in the election, is the party did not get unified behind her. This stuff's important. I want you to write down most of these words on the slide here. Pause it if you need to. Okay, time is probably like nearly running out in class right now if it hasn't already, but what's good about the primary system is it's very participatory. Lots of people can participate. The problem is they don't all come out and do it, but they're able to participate. It's very representative. It's a good testing ground for candidates. It's really hard to like work this hard and like travel all over the country and do all this stuff, so it's a good like experience to see like who's really going to be good at being president, because it's a lot of work. But what's bad about it? Well, not a lot of people do participate, like especially in the caucuses. It's too long. It goes on for months. Some of the skills they're showing are not really that valuable. Like being good at the media game like Trump doesn't necessarily mean like that's going to translate to being a great president. States fight over like who has more power. We got some bold words down here, so write down in your paper that voters in the primaries tend to be better educated and more rich than people that vote in the general election. And the delegates that go to these conventions tend to be more like extreme. They've got money, they're whiter, they're more educated, they're not moderate. All right, so what is left to do for the president? It's time to campaign in the fall. It's time to have election day happen. It's time for the electoral college. And it's time to win the presidency and give your speech on Inauguration Day, okay? All right, remember your homework. The lecture is over. Congratulations if you got this far. Have a nice day. I'll see you next class.